The morning hustle of Hawthorne Beck was always a blur. Heels clacked, voices buzzed, and espresso machines hissed behind the glass walls of the lobby cafe. Everyone walked fast, spoke louder than necessary, and checked their reflections in polished elevator doors. But as the chaos brewed, one person slipped through the noise unnoticed: Evelyn Carter. She pushed her cleaning cart like a silent observer, dressed in a dark green uniform that blended into the walls. Her eyes, though quiet, saw everything. She had worked here for over 9 years, long enough to recognize the rhythm of every executive's footsteps and the power dynamics embedded in every hallway conversation. Yet to them, she was just the cleaning lady, the background character in a corporate theater of arrogance and greed. No one knew that she had once lived a different life, full of hope and ambition, before tragedy hit and forced her into survival mode. This job was supposed to be temporary. But life had other plans. Now, she was 56, still pushing that cart. Not because she lacked ability, but because she had a plan. A long game. She heard them laugh. About her. About others like her. "She's still here," one executive sneered last week. "Is she even doing anything?" Evelyn said nothing. She smiled politely and kept cleaning the same smudged table where decisions were made that could ruin people's lives. What they didn't know was that Evelyn had been listening. Watching. Waiting. They had no idea she had the power to shatter their empire, but soon, they'd learn the hard way that IT was just another Tuesday, or so it seemed. The office was alive with its usual static keyboards clacking like machine guns, voices rising in meetings behind glass walls, and coffee orders exchanged like currency. Evelyn moved like a ghost through it all, wiping down smudged doors, collecting crumpled notes from trash bins, and listening. She never meant to eavesdrop. But when people believe you're invisible, they speak freely, too freely. As she dusted the picture frames lining the hallway outside Conference Room B, she heard them again. 3 men in expensive suits, laughing too loud, voices dipped in entitlement. "The shareholders' meeting? Please," one of them scoffed. "The board eats out of Alan's hand. The CEO's untouchable," another chimed in. "Besides, who's gonna challenge him? Certainly not that fossil in maintenance." Evelyn's hand paused mid-swipe on a frame. Her face didn't change, but inside, something shifted. They were so sure of themselves. So blinded by power and privilege, they couldn't imagine a world where someone like her had any real value, let alone control. But Evelyn wasn't angry. Not yet. She was focused. What they didn't know was that Evelyn wasn't just cleaning fingerprints off glass. She was collecting them: details, names, conversations, inconsistencies in stories. Over the years, she had built a mental database more detailed than HR's own files. She knew about the bonuses that never trickled down. The employees fired quietly after reporting misconduct. The lavish corporate retreats charged to inflated budgets. She didn't need a computer. She had memory, discipline, and motive, and most of all, she had something none of them suspected: ownership. They could mock her all they wanted. But she wasn't just watching anymore, she was preparing. Long before Evelyn picked up a mop at Hawthorne Beck, her life had already taken a turn most would never guess. She hadn't always been the quiet woman in green overalls. Years ago, she was Evelyn Harper, wife to Martin Harper, one of the company's earliest silent investors. Martin had believed in Hawthorne Beck when it was just an idea sketched on a bar napkin. He had poured his savings into the vision, buying up shares quietly, without fanfare. He wasn't flashy or greedy. He believed in building something lasting, something honest. But dreams, Evelyn would learn, often get devoured by ambition. When Martin passed away unexpectedly from a stroke, Evelyn inherited everything, including his shares no one ever bothered to trace. On paper, they were buried under shell entities and legacy trusts. In reality, they belonged to her, but Evelyn was grieving. She didn't understand business, didn't want to. She needed routine, a distraction, something that would tether her to the world. That's how she ended up applying for the janitorial position at the same company her husband once helped fund. No one questioned her. No one even recognized her name, and that suited her just fine. In her silence, she found clarity. With every whisper she heard in passing, every smug conversation echoing off marble walls, Evelyn's grief hardened into resolve. She saw what her husband's dream had become, something corrupt, something cruel. For years, she did nothing, but silence is never empty. It's filled with observation, with memory, with plans forming beneath still waters, and now, with the annual shareholders meeting only days away, Evelyn knew the moment was approaching. The cleaning lady everyone ignored was about to remind them whose name was still etched into the foundation they so proudly stood on. It was during a late-night shift that Evelyn heard the conversation that finally broke something in her. She had just finished restocking the restroom supplies when she passed by the executive lounge, a place that symbolized everything hollow and gleaming about Hawthorne Beck. Through the slightly ajar door, laughter floated out, sharp and cruel. Two senior managers lounged on the leather couches, drinks in hand, their voices loose from whiskey and arrogance. "We'll cut the lower staff first," one of them chuckled. "Nobody cares about the janitors, the mailroom guys. Hell, half of them don't even speak English." The other one raised his glass. "Dead weight. Makes the numbers prettier. The board eats that up." Evelyn froze, not because she was shocked, but because she'd heard it all before. What made this different was the tone. There was no hesitation, no shame. Just confidence. Like it was already decided, the company her husband helped build had become a machine that chewed people up for profit, and no one, not even the top brass, cared who got crushed underneath. That night, Evelyn didn't go straight home. She stopped by the office printer on the 9th floor. Using her access badge, she slipped inside and began collecting old reports left behind in the recycling bins. She knew what to look for now: inflated expenses, internal memos, budgets rewritten to hide layoffs. She wasn't just cleaning the mess anymore. She was documenting it. By morning, Evelyn had a manila folder full of evidence and a name scribbled on the cover in thick black ink: Truth. And for the first time in years, she didn't feel invisible. She felt awake. The boardroom had always seemed so far above her. But soon, she'd be standing at its head, not as a janitor, but as justice. For weeks, Evelyn moved like a shadow, silent, deliberate, invisible. By day, she remained the unassuming cleaning lady, pushing her cart, emptying bins, wiping away the fingerprints of people who never saw her. But by night, she transformed into something else entirely: an investigator, a strategist, a woman on a mission. She began mapping out the company from the inside. Who held influence? Who abused power? Who might be allies? Every executive had patterns, schedules, meetings, routines, and Evelyn knew them all better than they knew themselves. She noticed that one HR manager, Paula, always looked uncomfortable during layoffs. She kept a stash of tissues in her drawer and lingered after meetings, visibly shaken. Evelyn left a note on her desk one night: "They can't silence all of us. If you're ready to talk, leave your lamp on after hours." 2 nights later, the lamp glowed like a lighthouse. Paula wasn't the only one. A former accountant named Devin, who had quietly resigned 2 years ago, agreed to meet. He handed Evelyn a flash drive filled with old financial records. "They made me rewrite entire ledgers," he said bitterly. "Now I want them to pay." Bit by bit, Evelyn built her case, not just against Alan Greaves, but the entire rotten system that had allowed him to thrive. The evidence grew: emails, voice recordings, shredded documents painstakingly pieced back together like a jigsaw puzzle of betrayal, and all the while, the executives laughed, shouted, and bragged just a few feet away, never suspecting the quiet woman who passed behind them was the most dangerous person in the building. Evelyn wasn't preparing for revenge. She was preparing for a reckoning. And when it came, it would arrive with the quiet force of a woman who'd spent a lifetime being underestimated. The annual shareholders meeting was less than a week away. It was usually a formality, an event where executives patted each other on the back, boasted about inflated numbers, and entertained a carefully curated list of investors with catered lunches and glossy brochures. No one ever challenged them. No one ever asked the wrong questions, but this year, an unexpected name appeared on the attendance list. Whitaker, the assistant handling the RSVP list, didn't even blink. She assumed it was some old man in a suit. She had no idea that the E stood for Evelyn, and that she wasn't coming with a briefcase, but with the power to change everything. Evelyn had filed the necessary paperwork weeks ago. As the majority shareholder, her attendance was not only allowed, it was expected. But she had done so quietly, letting the system remain blind to her moves until it was too late. She also made one final call, to a local investigative journalist she trusted. "If I give you proof," she said softly, "the kind that would destroy reputations and shift public opinion, would you publish it?" The journalist paused. "If it's real, I'll run it front page." Evelyn sent the files that night. Back at the company, the countdown to the shareholders' meeting had begun. The boardroom was prepped. The media team rehearsed their talking points. Alan Greaves was ready to deliver another confident, carefully rehearsed performance, but Evelyn was preparing for something else, a storm of truth. A carefully crafted speech sat folded in her coat pocket. Every word chosen with precision. Every fact backed by evidence. No theatrics. No rage. Just quiet, undeniable power. For the first time in her life, Evelyn wasn't walking into a room to clean it, she was walking in to claim it. The morning of the shareholders' meeting arrived with a hush that seemed to hang over the entire building. Executives strutted through the corridors, their steps full of the kind of confidence that only comes with years of unchecked power. They exchanged jokes and congratulatory remarks, oblivious to the fact that their world was about to crumble to them. It was just another day in the office. Evelyn, on the other hand, felt the weight of every step she took. She walked through the halls as she always did, pushing her cleaning cart, her expression unreadable. But her mind was sharp, focused on the task ahead. Today, she wasn't the woman in the corner who wiped down desks and emptied trash cans. Today, she was the woman who would change the course of the company forever. As she approached the top floor, her heart rate steadied. She could already hear the murmur of voices behind the closed doors of the boardroom. They were getting ready for their usual grand performance, their high-powered speeches about profits, success, and how everything was just fine at Hawthorne Beck. Evelyn stopped at the door. She could hear Alan's booming voice through the thick wood. He was already speaking, probably boasting about the latest quarterly results. He had no idea she was coming. He didn't know that the real results would be far more devastating than anything he had ever achieved. She paused for a moment, just long enough to take a deep breath. This wasn't about the money. This wasn't about getting revenge. It was about something bigger, about justice, about standing up for those who had been silenced for too long. And now, it was her turn to speak. Evelyn opened the door. The boardroom fell silent the instant Evelyn stepped inside. Alan Greaves, seated at the head of the long polished table, didn't even glance up at first. He was mid-sentence, no doubt talking about some new financial strategy or the next quarterly projections. His voice, smooth and authoritative, filled the room, while the other executives nodded along, soaking in his arrogance. Then he saw her. Evelyn stood by the door, still holding her cleaning cart, her face calm and unreadable. She didn't move to leave. Instead, she quietly walked across the room and placed a folder on the gleaming table. The logo of Hawthorne Beck was emblazoned across the front, but there was something different about the way it looked now, a weight to it, a significance that no one in the room expected. Alan's smirk faded as he leaned back in his chair. "What's this? Another cleaning report?" Evelyn didn't answer immediately. She just took a step forward, her voice cutting through the tension like a blade. "No, Mr. Greaves. This is a shareholder's report." She paused, letting the words sink in. "And I'm here to tell you that your time is up." A ripple of confusion washed over the room. The executives looked at each other, bewildered. No one had seen this coming. Alan's expression shifted from curiosity to dismissiveness, but Evelyn's unyielding gaze held him in place. "You've built this company on lies, manipulation, and the backs of those you never cared to notice. And I've spent years collecting the evidence." She slid the folder closer. "The inflated expenses. The harassment complaints. The illegal layoffs. Everything you've buried. The room was dead silent. Then, Evelyn spoke the words that would change everything. "I'm the majority shareholder of Hawthorne Beck. And today, I'm firing you." The silence in the room was suffocating. Alan Greaves' face turned ghostly pale as the weight of Evelyn's words sank in. He looked around the room, expecting someone, anyone, to back him up, but instead, the board members stared at him in stunned silence. His usual smug confidence had evaporated, leaving only a quivering shadow of the man who had once ruled the company with an iron fist. He leaned forward, his voice shaky. "You're joking, right?" But Evelyn didn't flinch. Her expression remained cool, unbothered, as though she had been preparing for this moment her entire life. The folder in front of her had become the weapon that would expose everything, the lies, the corruption, the mistreatment. Every unethical practice Alan and his team had so carefully buried, now brought to the surface. "I'm not joking," Evelyn replied, her voice firm. "I have everything right here." She tapped the folder. "The documents, the emails, the recordings of you and your colleagues laughing about layoffs, the harassment complaints you swept under the rug. I've been watching, listening, and I've collected it all." The room was in chaos now. Board members exchanged frantic whispers, looking through the folder, checking the evidence as they began to realize the magnitude of what was happening. Alan's protests were drowned out as the truth came to light. One by one, the executives began to turn their attention away from Alan, looking toward Evelyn with a mix of fear, disbelief, and grudging respect. Evelyn wasn't just a cleaning lady anymore. She was the woman who had just brought down the CEO of Hawthorne Beck. With one final glance at Alan, she turned to the board. "I'm using my vote. He's gone." The vote was swift. By the end of the day, the news had spread like wildfire through Hawthorne Beck. It wasn't just another shake-up or corporate drama. This was something deeper, something that would change the company forever. Executives shuffled around in a state of shock, whispering in the halls, unable to comprehend how a cleaning lady, a quiet woman who had been invisible to most of them, had just dismantled the empire they'd built. The name Evelyn was now on everyone's lips, but not with the sneers and mockery they had once used. No, now it was with awe, admiration, and even guilt. Evelyn didn't bask in the attention. As the dust settled and Alan was escorted out by security, she returned to her routine. She wasn't looking for glory. She wasn't interested in making a spectacle. She had one goal: to fix the broken system that had allowed greed and cruelty to thrive for so long. The next day, Evelyn didn't walk into the building with a mop and bucket. She carried a clipboard. She wasn't here to clean anymore, she was here to lead. She quickly set to work implementing changes across the company, starting with the staff who had been so long overlooked, the cleaning crew, the assistants, the people who kept the place running but had never received a fair wage or acknowledgement. Evelyn made sure they got the raises they deserved, implemented a more transparent HR system, and even established a third-party watchdog to ensure ethical practices moving forward. The executives, once so untouchable, now found themselves answering to Evelyn. She called for company-wide ethics training, focusing on inclusivity and respect, and held town halls where employees at every level could speak freely. Evelyn had done more than fire a CEO. She had ignited a transformation, proving that even the most invisible person could create the biggest changes, and with that, she walked away from the company's glass walls, not as a cleaner, but as a force of change, unseen, but more powerful than anyone had ever imagined. Evelyn's journey is a powerful reminder that true change often comes from the most unexpected places. Her courage, patience, and resolve turned the tables in a way no one saw coming. If Evelyn's story inspired you, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more tales of resilience, justice, and how the unseen can shape the future. Join us for more stories that prove the power of standing up for what's right, no matter who you are. Share this video with someone who needs to hear it.